Hamakavi Barzel presents Rabbi Nachum Shifren, Torah scholar, author, public speaker, and good friend of the late Rabbi Meir Kahana.
Well, back at it, our podcast. We're a little bit on the edge here. I'm using my son's ingenuity of there's no internet here. We're in Pennsylvania, actually, at the point. And so we're using my iPhone to connect here. I hope everything works good. So it's great to see everybody, and glad you could all be here. And we are poised to receive the Torah once again this holiday of Shavuot. So we're going to talk about that. Interesting thing in the news real quick, and this is regarding one of the things that Rabbi Kahana taught us and actually admonished us for as a people, was this dependence upon the Americans. He said a famous quote. He said, we should be ready to eat tomatoes for half a year and not rely on the Americans. You know, there's something very unseemly about being dependent on somebody, no matter what, whether it's your business partner, whether it's your neighbor, your boss. You want to be independent. Everybody knows that, but do we do it? 30% of the Israeli agriculture has been destroyed from terror. The terrorists shooting rockets, bombs, whatnot into agricultural fields. Now, nobody talks about that. Why? Because it's a sign of weakness, a sign of complete ineptitude on the Israeli government. What they needed to do is on the 8th of October, 2 years ago, parachute into Tehran in Iran, kidnap the Ayatollah, and tell everybody, here's what's going to happen. You stop the war against us, or this guy goes down. Now they may have just say, we could care less, we're still going to kill you. Anyway, you get my point. They only understand force. They only understand strength. Rabbi Kahana once told us that every year there's a big gathering around the grave of Saddam Hussein, Yamach Shemo, and there's a big celebration regarding the day of for his death. And questions asked. He's a guy that personally had a hand in killing at least 500,000 Iraqis, his fellow citizens. Why would people why would people want to go over there and, give tribute to a murderer? And the answer is the Arabs don't care about that. They care about strength. As long as he's strong, as long as he was able to deal with the quote-unquote infidels, us, that was good enough for them, despite the fact that many of their family members were dragged off in the middle of the night and butchered. Nothing's changed that Israel that need not have been fought. The Torah makes it very clear, and there was a song about that. I think I mentioned that a long time ago. In the 60s, there was a band called The Byrds. Now, anybody over my age or over is going to remember The Byrds, but younger people might not. The song was a refrain from the book of Ecclesiastes on there's a time and place for everything, right? And the Torah mentions there's a time and place for everything. There's a time for war and a time for peace. When there's a time for war, you don't spare any measures. And what should have been done, there should have been a complete blockade of Gaza. Nobody gets any water, no gas, no food, nothing. The war would have been over October 9th at the very latest. Instead, we see wipes, unspeakable amounts of aid to our enemy that is sworn to murder us and is sworn to commit more October 7th again and again and again. Now, a normal intellect is going to look at this as something that there's no question about what we should do, what steps should be taken. But since we're not normal, that's where we are right now. So we see that the the situation in Israel is something that you and your family will never know. The Israelis learned a lot from the communists in Russia. The Pravda, all the press and the media was all focused on what the intentions are of the regime. Just the same thing in Israel. We'll never know the truth. However, we do know that 30% of the agriculture is missing in Israel. And there's the thought of seeing care packages sent by Americans to feed Jews is the most sickening and nauseating thing I've ever seen in my life. The land of milk and honey, where everything grows, where it's a Garden of Eden in terms of produce, in terms of grains, in terms of productivity of the land. It is. I hear these Christian radio stations boasting one after the other on how many packages of food they're able to send to Jews. This is the most outrageous thing I've ever seen. Does anybody ever talk about this? No. And we are the Jewish idea, Rayon HaYehudi, of the Kadosh, Rabbi Meir Kahana, Hashem Yikom Damo. And we are the ones that will mention it. We'll talk about it. And we will do it always in order to arousing you, anybody that's listening, anybody that cares, so they'll know what the truth is, and they'll, at least in their own mind, be clear about the events. We could go on and on about that. You know, a great psychiatrist once said, wherever I go, I take myself with me. Think about that. People are trying to make changes in their lives, and there's a whole movement in the United States, in the West, focus groups, counseling, therapy. People are completely nuts. As a teacher of almost 30 years, I'm completely blown away by the implosion of this culture, of these countries in the West, and their attitudes and whatnot. And it says in the Torah, truly, when you give up values that are eternal, you'll end up wondering if it only could be tomorrow, if it wasn't yesterday, if tomorrow could be better than today. If you see a leaf, you'll think a leaf is somebody chasing you. You won't be able to sleep at night. These are all things, the result of a complete capitulation to Western culture. Anybody think Western culture is on top of it? Look around. Anybody know anybody that's not in therapy or on some diet program or some whatever? It's truly amazing, right? And if you didn't know it, you'd say we were all in a huge, insane asylum. But anyway, wherever I go, I take myself with me. Well, this was the dilemma of the Jewish people in Egypt. When God finally had enough of the treachery and the going back on his mandates, and the Jewish people said to Moses, "Why are you doing this to us? Why are you bringing us to a land of milk and honey? We long for the cucumbers and fish we used to eat in Egypt." Now, they didn't eat it in Egypt for nothing. They were slaves making bricks for Pharaoh. Think about it. How would you like to eat cucumbers and fish, getting straw and getting mud and making bricks for somebody and for the rest of your life? What kind of a chilul Hashem would that be, right? The desecration of God, who was going to give them the best place in the whole world, right? So what do you do with a situation like that? Well, hence there was the 4 years in the desert. As a matter of fact, this week's parsha is called Bamidbar. Bamidbar, in the desert. 40 years was long enough to have the demise of any. You guys want? Nobody over 20 went in that land. They all passed away. And on Tu B'Av, on the 15th of Av, among other things, it was a joyous day for the Jewish people. However, there was everybody was commanded to dig a grave for themselves and lay down in it. And if they woke up the next day, they knew that that wasn't their time yet. Everybody, again, 20 or over, is supposed to pass away in the desert. Why? If you ever noticed, in any political revolution, it's always the youth that gets the focus. Hitler youth, Stalin youth, Cambodian youth, Fidel youth, Mao youth, the Maoist youth used to kill their parents. They used to kill anybody that was wearing glasses. They used to kill anybody that was old. The whole idea is to get a generation that will be inculcated without the nuisance of logic and of justice and mercy and righteousness. Yeah, so all these revolutions are youth-oriented, and so too the revolution of Judaism. Judaism wasn't just, pull in for a bagel and lox and a Starbucks coffee. That's not how it worked. Unlike a lot of people's thoughts and reminiscing about it. Cucumbers and fish sounds like a pretty great diet, right? But you can't get people to agree to be free that are older, that are established in their ways. And this was a way to inculcate young people in their destiny, in their future, and the eternal role of the Jewish people. What else can we say about the Midbar? Midbar, if you've ever been to the Sinai Desert, raise your hand. You will be blown away at how hot it is down there. It's like 130 degrees in the shade. No place to chill out for the summer, for vacation. There are those places like Nueva and Sharm el-Sheikh, and of course, Eilat, vacation spots, but there's air conditioning in your hotel room, right? Not so when the Jewish people were in the Midbar. If it wasn't for the clouds of glory, which we celebrate, of course, during Sukkot, those amazing clouds that shielded the Jewish people from this intense sun, you couldn't have survived 5 minutes out there in that heat. It was like that for 40 years. Interestingly, in the Sinai, in the wintertime, the Israelis during the October War were given these amazing jackets, coats, fur-lined. It was 20 below zero down there in the wintertime, January, February. And during the day, the temperature would rise 50 degrees. Can you believe that? A 50-degree temperature rise. So anyway, without going into too much, information on weather reporting. So yeah, the Midbar, which we celebrate tomorrow. Tomorrow will be Shabbos. We'll be reading the Parsha, the Midbar, in the desert. Was the beginning of the 40-year period where the Jews were in the Midbar. What were they doing? Well, not a lot to do down there. They know that as soon as they step out of their camp, their encampment, where the clouds of glory would encircle the entire encampment, as soon as they stepped outside of that, death is what's going to greet them, right? So what they did was study Torah. And they're called the Dvar Torah, the generation of knowledge. They knew everything about everything regarding the Jewish people's connection to God. By the way, with our eyes on the holiday coming in a fortnight, Shavuot, one of the things that we recall is that it says in the Torah that the Jewish people and the Torah and God are completely united. How could that be? We've talked about the fact that the Or Ein Sof, the infinite character of God, he's everywhere all the time, and you can't see him. Think about that for a while. Most people have a hard time dealing with that concept. Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. We use the word light to talk about his manifestation in our world. Light is also connected with the Torah. The Torah is called light. Without Torah, there is no light. We don't see anything without Torah. Another hard concept. One day we could talk about that. But this period of 40 years in the desert created literally everybody was a genius. You might say, well, how do they make a living? The only thing out there is scorpions and snakes, and even them, it's tough in that desert. Even for them, they had a hard time. Matter of fact, being in the Sinai desert, I don't know how anything could stay alive. But it does say that there's scorpions and snakes. So how did they make a living? They didn't have to. They were given the manna from heaven. And by the way, the manna was, who knows what it looked like. So it was white, like little breadcrumbs or something. They used to collect it every day. And whatever you wanted, if you wanted a cheesecake, which we're going to eat on Shavuot, right? If you wanted bagels and lox, if you wanted a sirloin steak, whatever you imagine, that was the taste that the manna would give you. Not a bad deal, right? You get something for free, and you're having $100 plate dinner all of a sudden, right? Pretty amazing. I think a lot of us would think about that and yearn for those days of the manna. Of course, we have the well of Miriam, right? So think of it. Plenty of food, water. Sounds like a pretty good deal to me. A lot of us, people that love to study the Torah and that need to study the Torah, go to great lengths to do so, taking time off of work or being with family or whatever. And another part of the desert trilogy here is that there was total isolation. Obviously, there's nobody around. Nobody's nuts enough to go into the Sinai desert. There was literally no, we know of, well, there were a few events in the Torah during the time that people were in the desert, but basically it was nothing but they dedicated themselves to learning, to studying. This points out another thing that the Kabbalists are keen to recall, and that is that learning, true learning, studying, internalizing eternal messages requires of us to be in isolation. I mean, it doesn't mean to be in a prison somewhere. It means being by yourself, alone, without being annoyed or interrupted by other things around us. This is something that is characteristic of people that learn. They have a certain spot. It's called hitbodedut. This idea of being isolated so you can focus your thoughts and your soul on that which you are learning. That was one of the advantages of the desert. No interruptions. No, the helmsman wasn't, bowing out his horn, telling you he's ready for another bag of donuts or whatever. So that sort of thing. So isolation, we learned at a very early stage, something that is in a lot of the teachings, whether it be Pirkei Avot or Kabbalah, Chassidut, or whatever. Very important for each of us to think and give attention to when we do learn Torah. Let us try to do it in a place where it's quiet. That's the bottom line. Also, the unification of the people, important. When you're in the desert like that and you're learning, everybody's learning the same thing. You're learning the oral Torah, the written Torah, and it was that's how it went, right? During the time of the 40 years, you might say, well, what was going on in Israel? Why weren't the 7 nations banished from there so the Jews could come in? Well, the idea there was that if you get rid of the people that occupied it, which was a mandate from God, these are evil people, by the way. These 7 nations represent the seven levels of impurity or evilness in the Torah. These people were not able to be redeemed at all, so God said they just had to leave. So the idea was they were pretty much put to the sword, right? When Joshua came into the land. So the idea there was that if you take the land and you, for 40 years, you kick out the inhabitants, you've got yourself a real problem when you come in, right? Wild animals, weeds all over the place. At least the 7 nations may have been evil, but at least they had crops and whatnot. And that was how the Jews sustained themselves when they did enter the land ultimately. So it worked out that way. We've just about covered what we wanted to talk about for Shavuot. Shavuot is the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. Har Nitinat Torah mi Sinai, from Har Sinai. So this is what we were talking about today, and I wish everybody a wonderful Chag HaShavuot. Let us all endeavor to put aside a few minutes each week, if possible each day, to study that which was bequeathed to us from the Creator of the world. אחד הממית, אחד המרבה, העיקר שילמד לשם שמיים. As it says, some people learn more, some less. Main thing is that we connect ourselves with this tremendous triad of God, the Torah, and the Jewish people. And we do so through the mitzvahs and the Torah. Through studying it, we're absolutely connected with Him. And on that note, I wish everybody a wonderful Chag HaShavuot. Be sure to eat some cheesecake, right? Some cheese blintzas, whatever it is. And remember those amazing days, said in unison, whatever Hashem says, we will do. Pretty amazing, right? It's like a carte blanche. And that's indeed what happened. By the way, the Torah was offered to the Ishmaelites and was offered. So on that note, again, and we shall be in touch.